Court TV is back, and we couldn't be happier. No guests on those shows many years ago, many times with Vinnie Politan. At the time, Kimberly Guilfoyle Newsom, Catherine Cryer. Now it's back and bigger than ever. And they brought back Vin as the lead anchor, and he is terrific. And he's back on Bernie and Sid for about the fifth time. We love having him on. Vinnie Politan, what's going on?
Hey! Good morning.
Hey, listen, buddy, I know you're coming on and talk about 25 years since O.J. Simpson, but the last time you were on with us, I went to that Kellen Winslow Jr. story. Again, big-time football player out of University of Miami, went to the Cleveland Browns and had some success there, too. Not nearly as much as we thought he would have. Some thought he'd be as good as his Hall of Fame dad, former San Diego Charger Kellen Winslow. He never reached that status, but he was still a good player. Then we find out this guy's raping women all over the country. And I guess yesterday it came back guilty on the rape of a homeless woman. What an unbelievable story here. Is that the latest on Kellen Winslow Jr.?
Yeah, but it's been a really strange verdict. So yesterday the jury did return a verdict guilty of the rape of a homeless woman, but there's still 8 more counts that are outstanding. So today the jury will continue deliberating, and there are still 2 counts of forcible rape. One dating back to 2003 from a high school party, and another one of another woman who's been described as a transient out in Encinitas, California. So he could still be facing the potential of life in prison. Right now he's looking at 9 years as a convicted rapist.
It reminds me of the story very much a couple of years ago, the former Pro Bowl defensive back Darren Sharper. Now, Darren Sharper, very similar to Bill Cosby. He would invite these I guess, NFL fans back to his hotel, and he would drug them, sleep with them. Some woke up in the middle of the sex. So Sharper closer to Cosby, but he does become Winslow, the second NFL player, along with Sharper the last couple of years, to be involved in, in rape.
Yeah, and it's the strange thing about this is Winslow, the second, is only in his mid-30s. His accusers are in their late 50s. There's one woman he was convicted of exposing himself to. She was in her 60s. Another one that some lewd conduct at the gym. She's 78 years old. So this is deviant, strange behavior.
Indeed it is. Vinnie Politan from Court TV. Vinnie, 25 years this week since O.J. murdered a couple of people notoriously and very infamously. Now, let me ask you this. Before we ask you about O.J. himself, I would posit to you that Court TV owes its existence to O.J. Simpson. Would you not agree?
In part. I think it made it a household name at that point, but there were other big trials. You had the Menendez brothers. You had William Kennedy Smith. There are a whole bunch of them. But absolutely, when you say O.J., people say Court TV afterwards. So it is part of the birthright of Court TV.
A lot of on-air personalities at the Greta Van Susteren, just a bunch of them. 25 years after the murders, O.J. Simpson says life is fine. You know, the last time I went to rehab, by the way, they said to me, Vin, FINE is an acronym for effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. And I got to think O.J. Simpson is all 4 of those. But I guess he thinks life is fine, because the truth is, even after the Vegas stint and doing time for that crime, he should have been put away for the rest of his life back in 1994.
Yeah, that was he's found liable for the death in the wrongful death civil suit, right? But in the criminal case, he was found not guilty. But at the end of the day, there was some evidence that came out during the civil case that wasn't part of the criminal case that would have been very helpful in that prosecution. But at this point, what you see from O.J. Simpson is much different. He's a much different person in the way he's living his life after getting out of prison than he was after being found not guilty of the double murders. Much more, below the radar.
Well, he's also much older.
Yeah.
I mean, back then, I remember he got out of jail. He went back to Miami. He was still hanging out with white blonde chicks, doing cocaine, going to bars, playing golf every day. I knew O.J. after he got off the first time. He was a younger guy and much different.
He was. And the other thing was he was obsessed with Court TV, by the way, because after the O.J. Simpson trial, when we would cover cases, oftentimes just situations would come up in a trial, and we'd make an analogy to the O.J. Simpson trial because everybody knew that case. And anytime you would do that, he would then call in to Court TV. The guy was absolutely obsessed with it. At this point, I think he's put all that as much as possible in the rearview mirror and is just focusing on, I guess, eating nice dinners and playing golf with his pension money from the NFL and Hertz Rent-A-Car.
Yeah, indeed. Vinnie Politan from Court TV. Vinnie, before he was incarcerated for the quote-unquote robbery, whatever, he was getting girls. He had autograph seekers. And let me ask you this. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know. Generally speaking, are not crimes of passion treated differently than crimes motivated by greed or psychopathic behavior or even rape, for example?
To a certain extent. I think the other part of that was that there was, he was a celebrity beforehand. And the way he was perceived by some people was as someone who beat the system, who beat the government. On one of the anniversaries, he came to Court TV for a sit-down interview with Catherine Cryer. And I stayed that night because my job was, if O.J. got up and left, I would go on with Catherine Cryer because it was a live interview. But so I'm walking through just past the green room, had never met O.J. Simpson in my life, and he calls out, "Hey, Vinny." And he knew me because he watched Court TV all the time. And he explained to me in the green room that he loved going to Europe because he was regarded as a hero there because he beat the American government. And I think that's part of the allure. Anyone that kind of gets away with something and beats the big old bad government, in some people's eyes, becomes a hero.
Well, a lot of the folks that were cheering outside the courtroom, African-American folks, said just that. They're like, we knew he was guilty. We don't care. He beat the system. But here's why he doesn't get what Bernie's talking about. Bernie's talking about the crime of passion. Yes, if in fact O.J. Simpson came home one night and he found his beloved wife having sex with Marcus Allen, for example, and he killed her, that would be somewhat explainable. That's not what happened here. He was beating the living daylights out of this woman for years. It wasn't all of a sudden crime of passion. He was a very abusive husband. He should have been arrested 10 times before that. So for me, the crime of passion thing goes out the window because he was an animal for years.
Yeah, that's and crime of passion gets dealt with differently in our legal system as well. But this was premeditated murder. You look at all the steps that were taken, and everything that he did beforehand and afterwards.
That's right.
That came out during the trial in the civil case. I mean, much different than just like, crime of passion is you're not planning it, you're not expecting to do it. It just happens. There's a moment where you have this irresistible impulse, but that was not the case.
So would you say that the ABC Sports Network, ABC in general, who employed O.J. Simpson throughout those years when he beat the crap out of Nicole Brown Simpson, would you say they're somewhat responsible for the ultimate murder, for keeping him on and enabling the guy?
No, I will not make ABC responsible for that. But I would say this, though, in today's world, it might be dealt with a lot differently, if in fact any of this stuff came out, because you know that things that happen these days get a lot more publicity, and there's much less room for people who are misbehaving at home to whatever level. So I think it may have been dealt with differently. But no, I do not hold them responsible. I do hold them responsible, though, for hiring you.
Yeah, there you go. Vin, I always piss off my wife, Danielle, who's a wonderful defense attorney, and our friends Joe Tacopina and Arthur Aidala when I say this because OJ's defense team was, quote-unquote, just doing their job. But when you look at what's happened since OJ was cleared of the crime, not the civil case, Johnny Cochran, dead, F. Lee Bailey, disbarred, Robert Shapiro's one and only son, dead of an overdose. I mean, outside of Barry Scheck, almost every attorney, almost all of them that helped OJ get off has either died or had something life-altering happen to them. So I always say karma's a bitch. Defense attorneys don't want to hear that, but the guy was guilty and they know it.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that. I just saw Barry Scheck a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
He's doing great, by the way, and has done incredible work with the Innocence Project. But here's the thing, and I say this, and I truly mean it, that we need criminal defense attorneys. We absolutely need them. Without them, our entire system of justice crumbles. Their job is different than prosecutors, and we need them. If they don't do their jobs and they don't take all the cases that they can, then we have no system, which is the best in the world, but it's not perfect. But most of the errors are made to make sure the innocent are not imprisoned rather than making the mistake of putting innocent people behind bars.
Vinnie Politan, Court TV. We're out of time. Are you guys doing something to commemorate this awful anniversary?
Well, if you go on courttv.com, you can watch the whole trial today if you want.
Wow.
How
How you
about
like
that?
Okay,
That's awesome.
Vinny, listen, thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
buddy. You're the
Have
best.
a great day, guys.
All right, you too. I do miss Giorgito. I miss him. I don't know why, but I miss him. And who was the freak? Who was that freak who lived? He's been on all these, B-list celebrity
Cato
shows.
Kalin.
Yeah, Cato.
Cato!
There you go, Bern. We'll take a short break. The Shrewsbury Bike Blitz is coming up next.